Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Canal Days, What Life is Like in the Industrial Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. I'm your host, Carrie, and joining us today is local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Comillen. He personally offers and leads public and private tours, as well as presentations of historical sites within communities throughout the state of Massachusetts. Currently, the communities he has chosen to focus on this year are Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, and East Hampton, and also Granby and Amherst as well. His tours spotlight the local canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks, streets, and selected historical houses within each community. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the Barrows Park located in Springfield, Massachusetts. So what is inside of the park?
Alright, inside the park is a recreational area. There's a lot of grass, and there's some walkways. And then, of course, you have the normal playground set. The whole is surrounded by wrought iron fence, so that's to good effect. But they have two playground sets inside of it too. And it's kind of a neighborhood park, but it's also part of the Legacy Trail too, so it's very important. And we're going to talk about what's around the park, outside of it, and we're going to also talk about that Legacy Trail, and then we'll talk about who this park is named after. Now, inside the park, there is a few other things, including a memorial stone, for instance, but most people go there because it's a neighborhood park with the playground sets.
And what is around the park?
Okay, now on one side of the park there's a very large church, and towards the back there's another church. And so that's one thing that makes this park very different, is that it's surrounded by these churches. I think one is a Baptist church and the other one's, I forget what it is, but it's towards the back. And then it's a busy road out towards the front. And the location of itself is 149 Walnut Street, so that's how you get there. And other than that, there's a lot of homes, so this is a residential area for most part, and thus it's important to have a neighborhood park in this area.
And really quick, before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to find out more information or sign up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And then you can find podcasts and videos of the stops along each of his tours, as well as photos and text of the historical sites throughout as well. And for private tours or other inquiries, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, @yahoo.com. And his tours make for fun, educational, outdoor activities for families and group parties. So getting back to our interview, what are the parks in the Legacy Trail?
Okay, there's a total of 6 parks in this Legacy Trail, and it's meant to be a walking trail, so you go from one to the next and follow along, and you come back to the same point. Alright, so if you start at this Barrows Park, what you would do is walk next to Donna Blake Park, then to the Samuel Bolden Park, then to the Harriet Tubman Park, then to the Ruth Elizabeth Park, and that's one of the Bill family parks, and then to the Gerrish Park. And every one of these parks I've visited, and I've made videos, and they have their own web pages. And it's, I believe, about 2.3 miles long, and they call it a legacy because it connects some of the important historical areas with some modern parks too that are named after important people in the modern history of Springfield also. So this Barrows Park starts at 149 Walnut Street, and then the Blake Park is at Pendleton Avenue. Then you go off to King Street and Wilbraham Street, onwards and upwards and around. So it's a great little park to follow around. I've done portions of it, so it brings you into some which the sidewalk is a little roughened up, but other portions have a fairly nice sidewalk to walk on.
And how is this park or I'm sorry, who is this named after?
Okay, the park is named after, obviously, a person named Barrows, but it was Charles Barrows. Okay, and the park is so good that if you walk into this park, they'll tell you right away, there's a sign here with the name on it, and it'll tell you who Charles Barrows is, and they'll have a map of the Legacy Trail. And the sign within this cemetery, this park, also has a story about Primus Mason. All right, so you're going to read a lot of history within this park itself. And then in the outside of the park, almost near the wrought iron fence I mentioned, there's a memorial stone. And it happens to be in memory of Ali Haj Malik Shabazz, who is Malcolm X, or a very important person in history. And he was born in 1925 and died in 1965. All right, so that's one other thing you can see inside this park. But overall, it's named after Barrows. All right, so please visit it and enjoy yourself there.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours and historical topics of your expertise. And we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And you can check out a large selection of other tours on his website, podcasts on his website, as well as on SoundCloud.com. And be sure to look out for new podcasts and videos posted daily. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Canal Days, What Life Was Like in the Industrial Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining us is Holyoke's own historian, local historian, and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Camus. He personally offers and leads public and private tours, as well as presentations of historical sites within communities throughout the state of Massachusetts. Currently, the communities he has chosen to focus on this year are Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, and East Hampton, and also Granby and Amherst as well. His tours spotlight the local canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks, streets, and selected historical houses within each community. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the Gerrish Park, located in Springfield, Massachusetts. So, what is the interior of Gerrish Park like?
Alright, it's a nice greenery and nice curving sidewalks or walkways through the park itself. And that makes it a very pleasant looking park. And there's a lot of nice trees that are different. You know, you have some large, some small, some maples, some oak, some elms, so forth. And the walkways have one they lead into, and that's a circular walkway somewhat towards the front of the park itself. So it's laid out in a very nice looking way. And today we're going to talk about not only the interior, but also the exterior. And we're also going to talk about this park as being part of the Legacy Trail. And then we're going to talk about the memorial stone that's inside the park itself.
And what is the exterior like?
Well, it's in this neighborhood called Six Corners. And so if you go towards one direction, there's a very busy circle there with 6 different roads coming into it. And for that reason, part of it's busy, but other points around the perimeter are not as busy at all. Now, Gerrish Park is between Walnut Street and Ashley Street. So to park, I parked up Ashley Street so you'd keep away from all the traffic that's in one part of it. And then walking the exterior is just a pleasant area. There's a lot of residential and a few stores towards that six corners or that circular area itself. So it's a small neighborhood park that have a few benches, so forth.
And really quick before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to find out more information or sign up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there you can find videos and podcasts of the stops along each of his tours, as well as photos and text of the historical sites throughout also. And for private tours and other inquiries, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. and his tours make for fun, educational, outdoor activities for families and group parties. So getting back to our interview, what are all the parks in the Legacy Trail system?
Well, this Gerrish Park is one of those, and I'll bring you around counterclockwise this time. You can start at Gerrish and go to the Ruth Elizabeth Park, which is one of the Bill family parks. That's very close to this park, maybe 250 yards away. Very, very close. That one's near the corners of Walnut, Hickory, and Hancock Streets. And then after that, it's a little bit of walk to the Harriet Tubman Park. Again, going counterclockwise, you can then meet the Samuel Bolden Park, which is near King Street, and then the Dana Blake Park, which is near Pennington Avenue, and the Barrows Park near Walnut Street. And then you can keep going the 2.3 miles to complete your circuit, and you can go back to Gerrish Park itself. So Gerrish Park is now part of that Legacy Trail, which is wonderful. And if you want to read about who this park is named after, just read the entrance introductory placard, which will have a map of the Legacy Trail, and then explain to you who Gerrish is exactly. So this will tell you about some of the history of the area and of old Springfield and of modern Springfield, because some of these parks are named after more modern people themselves.
And what memorial stone is inside of this park?
All right, just inside, somewhere near the circle, you're going to find a memorial stone dedicated on the 4th of July, 1942. So about 80 years ago. And it was erected in honor of the boys of Six Corners who answered their country's call and gave their service for the great cause of liberty in World War II. All right, and it was erected towards the beginning of that war, so it's more of a role of honor to people that just went off to the war to serve. And it's not a memorial stone in the sense that it doesn't have the death names of the people that served. But those men are honored elsewhere in Springfield. Okay, so it's a good park to visit no matter whether you like history, recreation, or want to walk part of the Legacy Trail. Thank you.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours and historical topics of your expertise. Now we want to thank our listeners for tuning in, and you can check out a large selection of other podcasts on his website as well as on SoundCloud.com. And be sure to stay up to date with new podcasts and videos posted daily. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Canal Days, What Life Was Like in the Industrial Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining us today is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Como. He personally offers and leads public and private tours, as well as presentations of historical sites throughout the state of Massachusetts. The communities he has chosen to focus on this year are Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, and East Hampton, and also Granby and Amherst as well. His tours spotlight the local canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks, streets, and selected historical houses within each community. Today's episode will be discussing the Harriet Tubman Park, located in Springfield, Massachusetts. So, where in Springfield is this park located?
Okay, it's located at Hickory Street. It's a small park, so keep that in mind. And we're going to talk about its features, what's inside the park, how well it's taken care of. And it's part of the Legacy Trail in Springfield. That's a series of 6 parks that are hooked together by a sidewalk walking trail that's 2.3 miles long. And we'll talk about all 6 of the parks at the end to finish off.
And is the park well taken care of?
Yes, so when I walked in, there was the typical playground set on the very top of it. Then in the back is just a walking area, so it drops down quite a bit in elevation, maybe 20 to 30 feet. And then in the back is a set of trees. It's not an arboretum, but it's having a lot of trees being put in, and that's a good sign. So it has a beautiful sign up top, and the children with their parents can use the play set at the very top of the hill, and adults can walk around the very back, and it's well taken care of. I'm glad it's part of the Legacy Trail because it's Harriet Tubman, of course, is the abolitionist that helped free the slaves, and to have her as part of the Legacy Trail is great because it includes important people from the history of Springfield 100 years ago, such as the Bill family. And then it includes people from the modern era who help keep the park system going within Springfield.
And really quick, before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to sign up for any of his various tours or check out more information, you can find that on his website, hoyocanaltour.org. And there you can also find videos and podcasts of the stops along each of his tours, as well as photos and text of the historical sites throughout as well. And for other inquiries or to set up a private tour, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And his tours make for fun educational outdoor activities for families and group parties. So, back to our interview. What features are inside of the park?
Okay, so you have that playground set for the younger children, and it's really extensive. It's right on the roadside, but it's fenced in so families can bring their kids. And there's a few park benches, and then as you sweep down towards the back, it has more features, walking area. And I told you about the trees that make it nice. It's a small park compared to the others on the Legacy Trail, which are mostly medium-sized parks. And so keep that in mind. It's hard to call a neighborhood park because there's hardly any homes around. But it's a good park that if you travel down this way, you can bring your kids for an hour activity.
And Tubman Park is part of the Legacy Trail, like you said, in the city. So, what are the other parks that connect to the trail?
Okay, I'm going to tell you about them. And keep in mind, you can walk part of this trail and head back, or you can do the whole thing, 2.3 miles, which might take you about 45 minutes of walking. And it's a sidewalk trail. It's an urban trail. Now let's go around it in a clockwise direction. Harriet Tubman Trail down Hickory Street. You go to Ruth Elizabeth Park, which is a very large park, the largest of the set of six. Then you come to the Gerrish Park, which is the smallest of the six. Then you go to the Barrows Park, the Donna Blake Park, the Samuel Bolden Park, and then the largest gap between the parks of the six in the Legacy Trail. You head back to the Harriet Tubman, and then you're back where you started. Now, so I'll tell you a little bit about where each one of them is. I told you the Harriet Tubman is on Hickory, but the Ruth Elizabeth Park, named after a member of the Bill family, is at the corner of Hickory and Hancock Street. It's a very, very large park. There's shortcuts along the way too if you want to cut through one edge of it. And then the Gerrish Park is at the Six Corners area, the corners of Hancock Street and Walnut Street. And on Walnut Street, keep going, and you come to Barrows Park. And then you take a sharp right onto Pendleton Avenue, and Pendleton Avenue is the scene of two different churches right at the top of the street. But after Barrows Park, also on Pendleton Avenue, only about a third of a mile away, is the Donna Blake Park. And then you get on to Eastern Avenue and King Street. And on King Street, you're going to find the Samuel Bolden Park. And then walk back along Wilbraham Avenue, and you come back to this Tubman Park. And again, they're great. I've walked portions of each of the trail out of these parks. I still haven't walked the whole park, but someday I will do that. Thank you.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours and historical topics of your expertise. And we want to thank our listeners for tuning in.